Okay, how's everybody doing this evening? Of course, my name is Kent, and the channel is EOS San Diego. So tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the chats, about the telegrams that Dan Lermer has been making here recently. I think in the last day or two. I want to talk a little bit further about those, but tonight I want to talk a little. First of all, I want to talk about the World Expo, which will be on the 13th and 14th of April. We will be there. So if you're wanting to go up, if you're wanting to find out more about EOS, about the applications, about meeting some of the people that are involved with EOS, like Karma, like ourselves, EOS Studio. I think Linux is going to be there, or Lynx is going to be there. It's going to be a lot of good people there. And if you're interested in building on EOS, or if you have questions, I think this would be a good place for you to show up. And of course, we're going to be there. Dallas is going to be there, hopefully. You can see who's going to be here. Quite a few good people are going to be here. Be there next April 13th and 14th. And of course, we'll be there too. There I am. So anyway, if you're in that area, or if you're thinking about anything, doing something on EOS, might not be a bad idea to check this out. It's April 13th and April 14th in San Francisco. So hopefully we'll be there, barring some sort of unforeseen event. We should be in San Francisco, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet a lot of people, just like we did when we were up there in the hackathon. It was a really nice venue. We had a really good time, and I'm sure everybody that shows up will be glad they did. So that's should be a really good event, showing up on April 13th and 14th. So what I want to talk about tonight, I want to talk a little bit about these telegrams that Dan has been sending out. And actually, let's read through a few of them. And it's kind of funny because I know a lot of the people here that he's chatting with. I know my good friend Johnny Cool here. Asked him a little bit about vote decay. And I think right now, vote decay, I think I watched Colin's video. There's a way that you can refresh somebody's vote so there isn't any vote decay. I don't know how much longer that's going to be in effect or not, but I think that's a short-term thing that'll get fixed. If you don't understand vote decay, Colin has a video on it, and he explains it pretty well. I think he talked to EOS Authority, and he got a pretty good idea how that's working. So anyway, if you're interested in that, check that out. But he talks a little bit about the trolley car problem, and it's actually the trolley car. It's a problem. You can just Google it. It's a trolley problem. It has to do with if you make a switch on a runaway train, if it runs over 3 or 4 people, or if it runs over one person, if you make the switch or not. And there's a lot of different variables involved. Check it out. But anyway, I think that's what Dan was kind of referring to when he talked about being able to take down Ethereum and Bitcoin. But anyway, I just want to read a few of these. He says, a terrorist threatens to nuke DC unless 10 million people send 0.1 Bitcoin within 40 hours. DC, 48 hours. Does DC get nuked? And he says, finally, it's pretty funny. He says, actually, EOS can make the payment, process the payment, whereas Bitcoin and Ethereum could not, because they don't transact very quickly. So Dan talks in a lot of this you would say would be cryptic. It's a cryptic way of him speaking. He kind of speaks in a cryptic way. It's kind of hard to really understand what he's saying, because he's kind of doing it in a way of using these problems, or these what would you call logic games or something like that, where it's kind of involving some dilemma, like the prisoner's dilemma or the trolley problem or something like that. So he kind of talks in that cryptic way, which makes it a little bit difficult to follow. And I've read through this several times, and it seems like every time I read it, I get something new out of it. But anyway, it's really, and it goes on a little bit further. The point of the question is to highlight the group's collectively lack of morality. So I think what he really wants to talk about here is right here. He says, it started as an attempt to show Bitcoin centralized. That got me thinking of the failure modes of group decision-making. In my opinion, this is a perfect opportunity for non-ambiguous intervention by producers. And then what if token holders vote for non-intervention? This is a bystander problem. For crypto to work, everyone must exercise personal responsibility. And this is what Dan says. Dan says, what is crypto solving? Resistance to government or actual consumer needs, ideally both. Absent government intervention, people would have better solutions. So what are we saying is that EOS takes a hard line on individual responsibility when the community could act because of a slippery slope. And then somebody writes back here from Strong Block, let individual block producers determine their own governing philosophy. Voters choose, and Dan looks like he kind of likes that one. He points up to it. Let individual block producers, okay, so he does a double finger up to that. But this is my issue with that. I mean, the issue is he's looking at block producers as individual people, more or less like individual block producers. What if block producers become entities? Maybe block producers become governmental entities. Maybe block producers became Virginia Tech University. I mean, Dan's in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is where Virginia Tech's at, and he's very close to Virginia Tech. So what if Virginia Tech becomes block producers? I mean, Virginia Tech has a strong there's a strong government a component to a university like Virginia Tech. So let's say Virginia Tech becomes block producers. Would that still mean individual block producers have individual are actually creating a governing philosophy if they're governed by some university or from some state institution? I mean, what if Peking University or University of Tokyo or University of Oxford or Virginia Tech or Stanford or any of these universities become block producers? I believe as the future goes on, you may see something like that. Block producers those positions may be taken up by people or entities that are very large, and not only that, but are influenced by government. So anyway, interesting idea. I don't know where this is going. I'd like to pose that question if I ever had the opportunity. I think there's a huge opportunity I'm reading from Dan again. I think there is a huge opportunity for a community that can better protect its own. Interaction is either proof of decentralized or proof of indifference to others. It's a tough problem. And it's clear I have no objective answer here. Oh, of course. And then my friend Elon Hare gets involved. He wants to do a video. But Elon is talking about the fact that exchanges, and this is what I said the other night. I think exchanges, in fact, that's the thing that's dominating news right now with EOS, is the fact that there was a bit got hacked for some EOS, and it's kind of like affecting the EOS price, which is ridiculous. I mean, it has nothing to do with EOS. This is an exchange that holds the token. The actual exchange was hacked, has nothing to do with EOS or the blockchain. Has to do with the exchange. That's why I always say you should hold your own EOS in your own cold storage wallet and not keep it on an exchange, because it is vulnerable to how the exchange handles your EOS. So he says if exchange had time delays on withdrawals, this could have been prevented. About the loss, I think the bit loss. And then I just hate bad guy profiting. I changed my mind. Exchange needs to be liable. And he's correct. That's absolutely correct. The exchanges should be liable for anything that is stolen or sold that is stolen from somebody else. And let me give you this scenario. So I buy a car from somebody, a completely good faith transaction, but the car has been stolen from somebody else, but I buy it from the person that stole the car. I pay good money, had a good faith transaction. We did a contract. I signed a contract. They signed a contract. I didn't do anything wrong. But now the police come and say, hey, you got the car. You need to give it back. So I have to give the car back regardless, even if it's a loss to me. But that's the way the exchanges are. If the exchanges are dealing in stolen goods, then the exchanges need to be responsible if they transact in those stolen goods. So in the case of myself, if I take the car and sell it to somebody else and profit from that sale, then I'm the one that's going to have to take the loss, because I can't transact in stolen property, especially property that is being able to be tracked by the blockchain. So I think exchanges are going to be liable and need to be liable for these stolen tokens. And hopefully they do take the responsibility. I think more and more are starting to do that. But anyway, I just want to go on here, go through a few of these others. Basically, what Dan is saying is that 21 block producers are going to be more decentralized than mining pools. And he's talking very cryptically here and using different things like the morality issue and stuff like that. But I'll just put it all in kind of a more easy way to understand. And this is it right here on this particular link, the Bytemaster 7, Dan Lammer. How many innocent people would have to hold ransom to get Bitcoin or Ethereum miners to reverse transactions? Would miners and mining pools operators be subject to class action lawsuits if people died because they mined? So right here, and if you read through these, this is where we've been talking about the last couple of days, so I'm sure everybody's read it by now. But right here, you have a breakdown of the 21 block producers, actually a few more than 21 here, a few of them outside the 21, but since maybe some of the 21 aren't always transacting, then these others are also transacting too. So I don't know how they come about this, but there's more than 21 here. But the thing about it is you can see how the producers are pretty evenly distributed. How the hash rate distribution is going on here, how it's so it's almost equally distributed over this many people. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can see how it's weighted in favor of just a few people here. Over 50% looks like is weighted in about 3 people, 1, 2, 3, probably pretty close to 50%. So in EOS, the decision making, and actually with EOS, the decision making isn't through these block producers. Block producers are just a tool the community uses. What's really making the decision is the voters. That's why it's very important for you to vote. And that's why I think it's very important for you to vote for yourself and not have somebody else vote for you. And that's why it's very important to take your EOS off in an exchange and use that vote for yourself, because these block producers are just representing votes. And if each individual person that owns the token votes, then the moral dilemma of which what Dan is talking about is spread out over the community. And that's the most that's the most fair way you can have it, is the voting of the stakeholders. That's why the delegated proof of stake protocol is the protocol that will win out over all others, because it's the only fair-minded way of doing something like this, where you have independent blockchain that is decentralized, running autonomously, but it's running independent of everybody or anybody, one person, but it's running as a collective organization through a community that owns the blockchain that's distributed out over hundreds of thousands of people. That's the way this runs most effectively. That's why it's very important for block producers to maintain integrity, block producers to be independent, and block producers to receive individual votes, and those block producers to be changed out from time to time. We need to vote block producers in, and we need to vote block producers out. If we're not doing that, I don't think that the block system's working as well as it should. It's as in politics. I see these politicians that get elected and they stay in forever. I remember some of them from when I was a kid, and I'm in my late 50s. I remember some of these senators that were around when I was a kid. Chuck Grassley, for one from Iowa. The guy's been around forever. I mean, I remember when they were going through the Clarence Thomas hearings, and I was a young man then. And they were talking, Chuck Grassley was talking, and, you know, the guy's still around. I mean, he's still part of the whole thing, and he's been around forever. I mean, we can't find somebody better in Iowa to run than Chuck Grassley. Not that I just like Chuck Grassley. I think the guy's kind of funny, but he's been around forever. I mean, you got to get him out of there every now and then. Gee whiz. I mean, it's kind of like, I think that's what's going on with the elections in the United States. I mean, you got the Bushes and the Clintons, and people got tired of the Bushes. People got tired of the Clintons. And then Barack got in, and now Trump is in. So, I mean, people get tired of the incumbency. That's why I thought it was a really bad idea for the Democrats to run Hillary, because they got tired of the Hillarys. They got tired of the Bills. They got tired of the, you know, the Jebs and the Bush 43s and Bush 41s and all these people. They're just getting tired of it. And that's the way we have to be with these block producers. We have to be able to change them out, Have to be able to get new people in. If we don't get new people in, then this just gets to be a same old story, same old story. So I think the really strength about this protocol and the way it works really well is to keep people in and out, keep people voting, keep this refreshed, and not have it like this where you have heavily weighted. And then of course Ethereum's even worse. Ethereum is really centralized as far as this is concerned. So Dan's cryptic way of speaking is actually illustrated here very well, how this is distributed and how this is weighted. And like I say, I've made plenty of videos in the past about block producers, of which we are one, EOS San Diego one. We are not a block producing block producer where we're actually making blocks, but we're a standby. But because of that, we're pretty familiar with how that works. But there's a lot of things going on with block producers, and everybody needs to be pretty aware of it. And everybody also needs to be aware of the fact that they have a vote and to use that vote as much as possible, because that makes the block chain much stronger. And I think in the eyes of Dan, that's the way it should work. So anyway, really good stuff here. I think it's very interesting. I like the way Dan thinks. He actually thinks very, very interesting. I mean, for a man that's has so much going on, he gives a lot of very what would you say? He's got a very strong opinion about things, and he has a strong opinion because he's thought these things out very well. It seems to me like he's probably had some past experiences where he's it's made him have some strong feelings about stuff. I don't know what his past experience has been, but he has strong feelings about government. He has strong feelings about individual freedoms, and he has strong feelings about the ability for things not to be centralized but decentralized. So he has a very strong feeling about that, and he makes it pretty well known in his Twitter and in his Telegram. So anyway, interesting stuff. Go back and review it. Like I say, I read it 3 or 4 times. Every time I read it, I got something new out of it. So I think it's pretty interesting. Not to mention the fact it's pretty funny. Dan has a pretty good sense of humor too. So I would read it for a few times. Oh, I also watched these guys are good friends up there at Sanford Glass, and of course Zach. This is a pretty good video. I would highly recommend it if you want to watch it. He makes some connections from some of the stuff that's going on with the administration, with the Trump administration. Bannon, I don't know if you remember him or not. Steve Bannon, who was in the Trump administration, also had a connection with crypto. And the Zach Gall, I think his name is. Actually, I think Zach's going to be up in. I think in this video he says he's going to be in San Francisco. So hopefully we can see him up there. And of course, Rob Finch from Sanford Glass. So anyway, he makes some connections, some nice little connections in this video with some people in Washington D.C. and some of the connections with hopefully EOS and how this is moving. I think he said that EOS is wanting to open an office in Northern Virginia, which is very close to Washington, D.C. Anyway, he gives a lot of good information in this video. I'd recommend it. I watched it. That was pretty good. Also, the one Colin did on Block Decay is a good one too. So anyway, lots of good stuff out there. A lot of things people can watch. So appreciate you listening. And here's the markets. Let's see where we're at right now. Like I say, EOS took a little bit of a hit today because of the BitDump thing, which really didn't have anything to do with EOS. I think with the news EOS has going on right now, this would be a really good time to buy it. Of course, that's just my opinion, but it's definitely in a good place right now, especially with news coming up in the next couple of months. A lot of people speculated on that. Bitcoin's been over 4,100, I think, today, and it's kind of bouncing around. Hopefully around 43, 4,400 is where we're going to see Bitcoin go here very soon. So anyway, I hope the market continues to go up and lots of good things coming in the future. Thanks for listening.